Hey, my name is Attorney Walter Wolfnall III. We're going to be going through what a lot of people have been calling the President Biden $2,000 monthly increase. And it's actually not really President Biden's. It's actually Congresswoman's Rashida Tlaib's. She's Michigan, basically a congressperson who has provided essentially a fact sheet. I'm going to go through that fact sheet with you guys right now, which is called the Automatic Boost to Communities Act. It can be found on our website. I'm just going to read through it and give you kind of my, response to it and things like that. Summary, number one. In response to the coronavirus crisis, the Automatic Boost to Communities Act would immediately provide a U.S. debit card preloaded with $2,000 to every person in America. Each card would be recharged with $1,000 monthly until 1 year after the end of the coronavirus. Let's read the important financial part again. Immediately, so this act would immediately provide a U.S. debit card preloaded with $2,000 to every person in America. Each card would be recharged with $1,000 monthly until 1 year after the end of the coronavirus. So that is basically a formulation of here's $2,000 to start with, and then here's $1,000 every single month thereafter. That's where a lot of this $2,000 has stemmed from. It originally started with an act that was put in, and basically they had to redo a lot of the wording on it, but the bottom line is this is what it's kind of come down to at this point. Section 2. Guaranteeing universality. Universality. You don't see that word often. Universality. Every person includes dependents, so a couple with 2 children would receive 4 $2,000 payments. So basically you'd have essentially a couple, 2 people. I'm not saying male or female, but 2 people. And then you have 2 children, and each one of those would get $2,000, equating to $8,000 in total. Non-citizens, including undocumented people, permanent residents, and temporary visitors whose stay exceeds 3 months. I know a lot of people would be very upset about this particular provision. Obviously, this congresswoman, it comes from the background that she does, which is why there's this included in it. But basically, a lot of the immigrants that are passing over the border would essentially be able to tap into this money as well. Individuals who do not have a bank account, social security number, or permanent address. Once again, I know that this would be highly controversial. I am aware that if somebody does not have a bank account, a social security number, or permanent address, this could cause some issues, most of all the one with the social security number. So I'm not going to go into the political back and forth of it, but here we go. Let's keep going. Although that is ripe for slush fundy actions, where you could basically say, oh, there's all these people that don't really exist that do exist, and we're going to be paying those people. There is that. You could just make up a lot of people and send them payments and then have that all be redirected to another bank account. So I can see, and I know before you guys flip out and go, what is she thinking? I know, I got it. Also, guys, thanks so much for the ones who reached out and said, have a great vacation. I appreciate it. I only get one vacation a year, and I have to work during the vacation, so it's not really a vacation, but I get to go to a nice spot in Maine. Also, thank you for the people who reached out specifically about where Shadow bit me. It's healing, but the worst ones are underneath because he got me like that. I gave him a kiss and said, calm down, and then the other dog on the other side of the road was off leash, so I picked him up, I gave him a kiss, and he bit me. But, dogs bite the closest thing that they can when they freak out, so I know he doesn't mean it. He's just a little snuggle muffin. Alright, now let's go to the next one. And of course, you don't have the backdrop like always, and the better lighting like always, and the AC's in the corner because I'm on vacation right now. People living in unincorporated territories or protectorates and Americans living abroad. So this act includes pretty much anybody. If you're in the U.S. or you have any attachment to the U.S. while being outside of the U.S., pretty much you'll get paid. To ensure that this program is as universal and comprehensive as possible, the U.S. Treasury will develop its list of eligible individuals in coordination with the Internal Revenue Service, the Social Security Administration, the Federal Election Commission, and every other relevant federal, state, and local government agency, including state-level departments of motor vehicles. So there's going to probably be a lot of dead people included in this. That used to be a funny joke. That, before the whole 2020 election, that used to be a really funny joke. With Democrats having dead people voting, and it's everybody'd be like, when I die, please don't let me vote this way, or when I die, I want to continue voting this way. That used to be a really funny joke, but now it's not funny because of everything that's going on. But this does worry me because, it's not that they do a terrible job, but we don't really hear, from the government about all the people that they paid, other than a few that got like ridiculous. So that person got $5 million in stimulus. We don't really hear about the major screw ups in that regard. So this is a little bit scary, Part 3, distributing the money. The prepaid cards would be distributed as U.S. debit cards and would be administered by the U.S. Treasury's Bureau of the Fiscal Service. Okay, usually, all right, I'll go with that. These prepaid digital cash cards would be used to withdraw physical currency at regular ATMs or FDIC-insured banks or credit unions, or make payments at point-of-sale terminals as well as online. So like if you went to Walmart or you went to a place where you could pull funds, you'd be able to do that with this. In addition, these cards could be topped up with additional funds as needed during and after the crisis. So you could use it as basically a debit card. That is my favorite part of this whole thing. So one thing that she's got more right than most people realize, is that the government is providing a generalized debit card. I know a lot of you guys are like, well, I don't think the government should know what I have on my debit card, and blah, 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 blah. Yeah, fine, then go get a bank debit card. Fine, just go get a different card. But the point here is, and I know a lot of homeless people, and look, I've always been honest with you guys. I represent people from all kinds of backgrounds and all kinds of pasts. So I need you guys to understand something here. I realized I was too close to the camera. I represent the murderers and the rapists to the doctors, the police officers, federal agents. I represent all of these people in here, okay? And there's a lot of people on the homeless, low income side of what you would expect, that basically don't have debit cards, or don't have access to debit cards, or they have to do some Walmart card thingy and boost the cat, all that. This is a really good idea, because some people need a means to put cash on a card, and they just don't have a great way to do that right now. There's always some catch, right? You have to pay so much to check how much of a balance you have on it. You have to pay this much per transaction. Have you ever noticed that the homeless and the low income, the people without dwellings, they have the worst financial, think of this. You ever notice when the rich go to a bank, they don't get dinged for percentages, they don't get dinged for this or that or whatever, and that's because they're putting a lot of money into that bank gets to borrow against their money. But the poor, transactional costs, monthly fees, there's all kinds of stuff. There's all kinds of stuff. Even I get hit with some of those sometimes when I'm having a student loan month that just eats me away. And so I think that this is a really good thing. I think Rashida Tlaib is really doing a good job on that particular part of it. There's a lot of other stuff in here that I'm worried about, but that is a really good idea, okay? All cardholder and interchange fees associated with use of distributed cards would be waived for the duration of the coronavirus. That's amazing. Now, what would be more amazing is that this card would not have any of those fees going forward. That way we could have a national, put your money into a digital form system, which the government wouldn't be super for, because the digital currency actually hurts the U.S. tender, but, the digital currency thing is happening unless the governments get together and find a way to just shut down the websites that created this currency, as a tradable commodity. D, the program would establish a common database of recipients identified by name and or where available, employer identification numbers, EINs. Identifying information would not be shared with any other federal, state, or local agency, or any, that's weird, or any, just cuts off there. Okay, so they got to fix this. Right here it says, information would not be shared with any other federal, state, or local agency, or any. And then just basically, there's no period, there's no end, it just starts with a new bullet point. So they got to fix that. Okay, no biggie. Not a big deal. We keep going. Any individual who receives, activates, and uses more than the maximum number of cards authorized for themselves and the dependents, either as a result of fraud or administrative error, would have excess funds reclaimed in the future via appropriate mechanisms, i.e. tax refund deductions. That's fair if somebody's abusing the system. Look, the major thing that happened during COVID was workers' comp abuse, interstate workers' comp abuse. They got a lot of these thieves, a lot of these bad people. Drug dealers were doing a lot of that. They got a lot of them, and basically, and remember guys, you think of drug dealers as just like a person that deals drugs with somebody. That's not what drug dealers are anymore. Drug dealers are doing high-level fraud. Drug dealers are doing transactional fraud. Drug dealers are taking the disability cards from people who are addicted to drugs. Then they're moving into their house, and they're taking over their house, and they're getting the title transferred to them. Drug dealers are not as simple as they drive around in a C300 all the time distributing drugs. I mean, that's how they do it in Florida all the time. But that's just not how they do it anymore. Now they have an entire electronic fraud system that they use. So, this is good. This will continue to catch those people and put them in jail. All right. Page 2. F. Cards would be distributed in 3 ways. Direct mail. All individuals with an active address on file with any government agency would have a card sent to them to that address via USPS. That is ripe for a fraud situation, but okay. Number 2, in-person pickup. Individuals who do not have a permanent address or who otherwise can or do not receive their U.S. debit card by mail, including undocumented people, permanent residents, and temporary visitors whose stay exceeds 3 months, could also obtain one directly from any FDIC-insured bank or credit union, or temporary card distribution stations that would be placed at local post offices and U.S. embassies overseas. All right, so basically they're outlining where you can go pick up the card to get the cash going. So she, in this next part, addresses something that is a near and dear clear thing to my heart, which is that there needs to be some sort of outreach for people that are part of a category where the government doesn't know if they're real, doesn't know if they're valid, could be criminal, could be terrorist, could be whatever. So what she put in here I think was very, very smart and very, very good. Number 3. At-risk outreach. A dedicated emergency responder corps would perform outreach to at-risk populations, including people who are elderly, homeless, physically disabled, or live in remote areas to ensure they receive their U.S. debit card and to simultaneously perform a general wellness check in case they need additional targeted assistance. That's a good idea. That's a great idea. And I know a lot of you guys are like, well, I can't do this. Think about it, though. A lot of these people don't have transportation, they don't have health insurance, and they don't have any cash coming in any month. Soon, currently, anything. So that's a good idea. And I think, frankly, we could get a lot of the people who are doing Lyft, Uber, and stuff like that. We could train them to go ahead and do this job, and they could be part of that outreach system. That would be an amazing thing. I mean, think about that. You could have basically people checking on those individuals that might be, fraudulent or reporting back, and, you wouldn't want to put them in harm's way, but maybe you could hire a particular security group that is trained on how to handle these situations. Get some ex-police officers, ex-agents, stuff like that. And they could be part of this to check out, potentially problematic citizens that, might not actually be citizens or within the non-citizen requirements. There's a lot you could do with that. And we just mass distributed funds before, but think about that. Why didn't we have this at a higher level, We need to have some sort of, and I know that's ripe for fraud too, but baby steps to go in the right direction, to have an agency that actually follows the way it's supposed to be going. So having an emergency dedicated responder corps, I think is a good idea, because they can also validate who's getting it and who's not getting it. And there's a lot of criminals who received benefits last time, and I don't mean criminals in the sense of they're following the criminal procedures of what's going on with their, with the legal system and yada yada. I mean criminals that are hardcore, true, money laundering, can do massive theft digitally criminals. And we need to make sure those individuals don't get the payments of those who were supposed to receive the payments. A lot of times, just so you know, a lot of people who are supposed to get them, they're the number one targeted group to not get them, because the thieves know how to steal money from them. There was a large group of Latinos, specifically in Florida, who during the 2008, 2009, 2010 period, basically there was massive fraud in the Latino community, where the classic thing, they would file taxes and the fraud person would get, basically the majority of funds for their return, and then the person would get $500. And then the IRS would contact the Latino person who was like, hey, the IRS would be like, you have to pay us now. You have to pay us now, because the bottom line is, you said you earned this money and didn't pay taxes on it, and we already sent out a return. So there was a massive amount of fraud. In fact, a lot of claimants that I get from that kind of background, I would specifically look in their IRS, detailed earnings query, summary earnings query, certified earnings query. I would specifically look at those documents inside the ERE when I was working up their disability claim for the hearing, and I would look for those to see if there was an issue. And for that period of time, there were a lot, and I mean a lot of fraud going on with that. And the sad thing too is that a lot of them didn't even realize that fraud was going on. A lot of them were just like, hey, my friend recommended you that you could do this stuff and file my taxes, and maybe they knew, maybe they didn't know, but bottom line is, it's sad, because then they got hit with thousands of dollars that they had to pay to the IRS, and the criminal got away with thousands of dollars. So It was a sad thing for that community, and Number 4, funding the program. This automatic boost to Communities Act would be a money-financed fiscal program for which no additional U.S. debt would be issued. Let's read that again. This automatic boost to Communities Act would be a money-financed fiscal program for which no additional U.S. debt would be issued. And how are they going to do that? Instead, the program would be funded directly from the Treasury using its legal authority to create money via coin, which is, I don't even know how to pronounce that word. Seigniorage? I don't know. Which is a statutory delegation of Congress's constitutional power of the purse. So what they're saying here is they're going to create mass inflation by mass printing money. That's what they're going to do. If they did it this way, it would not be good. And the reason why is that we are already looking at a 4.7% increase for COLA, which is also held back a bit. It's probably more like 8 to 12%, but they can play games with the money. But the bottom line is that this is basically, it's literally this: create money via coin, which is a statutory delegation of Congress's constitutional power of the purse. Which sounds cool, but all it is creating hyperinflation, which means that milk will go from $2 to $15, and bread will go from $2 to $30. And you don't need that. That long run hurts the poor. C, the mechanics of this funding approach would be as follows. Here we go. The Treasury Secretary would direct the U.S. Mint to issue 2 1 trillion platinum coins under the legal authority provided by 31 U.S.C. Section 5112, subsection K. Congress would direct the Federal Reserve to purchase the newly issued coins at full face value. The Federal Reserve would complete the purchase by crediting the U.S. Mint's account at the Fed with $2 trillion in reserve. They're printing money. That's all they're doing here. This sounds fancy, but they're just printing money. The Fed would retain ownership over the 2 1 trillion coins permanently in order to ensure its own balance sheet remains fully capitalized by the Treasury. So what they're going to do is they're going to have one group make these magical coins, and these magical coins are going to be asserted to have a certain amount. And what are they made out of? I'm just curious. 1 trillion platinum coins. So they're going to be made out of platinum. So basically, we're using our own reserves of special metals, rare earth metals, to make coins that we then assert value to, and then we make one agency buy them from the other agency who created them, thus giving them that value. So that this is a $2 trillion situation. And then basically the reserve then holds on to these coins, which it already had to begin with through the federal government, and says, look, we've magically made $2 trillion. I mean, this is moronic, but it's a way to do it. It's a way to magically make currency. It's printing money. That's all this is. It's printing money. The Treasury Secretary would sweep the newly created reserve funds from the Mint's account into the regular Treasury general account. It would sweep. The Treasury would make the funds available to the Bureau of the Fiscal Service to disperse to every person in America in the form of prepaid U.S. debit cards. All right, so let me just summarize for you. We're going to take rare metals that we already have, and then we're going to make coins out of them. And then we're going to make those coins, basically have a denominational value to them, right? So we're going to know this is worth $1,000 per each coin. Then we're going to basically, this agency is going to buy the coins, and then this agency is going to basically give it to another agency to hold on to the coins, and then those coins will basically be on a balance sheet as the $2 trillion they need, and then over here, the group with the big list of who gets paid will sweep the funds into it, create the debit cards, and then pay for everything. I mean, I'm not the only person that thinks this is stupid. I'm really not. I mean, hopefully I'm not. But, this is mass. This is $2 trillion of printing money. Money only holds value through truly work product created, sold, bought, things like that. I mean, there's other little things too, but that's like the main thing. Work product created by people. And then, of course, assets and investments that were held. So, what they're doing is they're basically taking a lot of platinum and then doing the American capitalist thing, which is ironic because it's coming from this Democratic Michigan representative, and they're basically doubling the money by giving it essentially. So the government is losing $2 trillion from one agency, but then it's magically creating $2 trillion in another way. D. This approach would preserve the historical separation between fiscal and monetary policy and avoid financial entanglement between the Treasury and the Federal Reserve, which would eventually undermine the independence of the Fed. So you're not putting it on the government, you're putting it on the people. In the long term, because remember, the people ultimately, in the long term, are going to have to deal with the mass inflation from this. In the long term, the card infrastructure should be converted into a permanent Treasury-administered digital public currency wallet system. Yeah, that's true. It should. There should be some cheap option for people to be able to use other than a bank. It's true. To serve as a privacy-respected e-cash complement to universal Fed accounts and/or postal bank accounts for all. This proposal should be accompanied by progressive tax reform to ensure that emergency relief provisions does not exacerbate income or wealth inequality in the long term. Hey guys, so basically this was presented by Rashida Tlaib, who is essentially the one of the couple of congresswomen, you know, that Michigan Democrat that a lot of the Republicans really hate. You've probably seen her on TV or part of pictures that essentially, you know, Fox News is obviously very anti. But what this bill does is it creates inflation at a hyper, mega, Thanos-like level of power, and it would do it in basically that amount of speed. Because they would create these coins, resell these coins to another government agency, and it would just force chaos so that you would be seeing bread going from $2 to $15, $4 gallon, $3 gallon, up to $20, $25 of fuel. It would just destroy the country. And you know who would hurt the most? It would actually hurt the poor and the homeless the most, which is what she is always presenting as like what she's trying to help and save here. But unfortunately, a lot of the plans that the Democrats are coming out with, and remember, Republicans have their problems too, but a lot of the plans that the Democrats are coming out with right now are very, sorry about that, guys, are very anti-long-term helping the poor. They're like immediate fixes that will really screw over the poor in a long run. So, unfortunately, I can't support this as it is written, based upon how they're getting the funding. It literally will destroy the U.S. currency. But, you know, and that's a sad thing. If you destroy the U.S. currency, you destroy the United States. And any freedoms that we have, people would be gladly, you know, spending them to go ahead and just get food, water, things like that. So the rich will do very well in the long run with this particular bill because they have the money to spare and they're in multiple countries and they can move around and things like that. But the poor, this would ruin the poor. This would absolutely ruin the poor. So, anyways, guys, my name is Attorney Walter Knott with Disability Resolution PA. I wanted to give you an update on this. I know there's a lot of misinformation out there specifically about it. I just wanted to give you, you know, a background, somebody with a, you know, a JD, Juris Doctorate, and somebody with an MBA, which is basically a business degree at the master's level. I just wanted to give you an update specifically as to what's going on with this $2,000 monthly boost, yada yada. It does have an act out there, and it's extremely unlikely to pass. It's HR 1030. You know, you can look it up. Please do. Please look it up. And please keep in mind, a lot of these other people that are boosting their Facebook or their YouTube stats to go ahead and get more viewers with this. The last video I produced on this was basically like, you know, the likelihood of this passing, or this is as real as a unicorn. My point to you is this. If it's too good to be true, that's usually a good red flag thing. But also, and I'm going to be showing you how to do this shortly, in about 2 months, you're going to start to see like the videos on how to write a bill, how to do research on it, what are the emotions you need to look at while creating it, how to push the political, you know, the senators, the House reps, things like that, even the president, to go ahead and push this bill. So it's going to go through in a step-by-step analysis way of how to approach creating bills that can become laws so that you have the power again. And the whole idea of this is to put the power back in the hands of the people instead of the politicians. And I know a lot of you guys don't have an education on this, but I'm going to literally take from all of my education and just show you how to do it. which, probably get me put on a hit list. But the bottom line is this. It will show the general American population how to write bills that ultimately can change everything. Scary, right? But, we haven't tried that yet, other than when we first started this country, and even then it wasn't really the American people, it was just the aristocrats. Back then, George Washington was one of the richest politicians / generals that was in the United States. A lot of people don't know that pretty much most of those people that are on the signing documents, they were super wealthy. So my point here is that, they had education, and education wasn't as available as it was back then as it is now. But my point of this is, what if we educated everybody on how to create law? Crazy, right? Chaos or a complete fix. One or the other. So it's somewhere in that spectrum. Anyway, guys, have an absolutely wonderful day. My name is Attorney Walter Knott with Disability Resolution PA. We'll catch up a little bit later, and we'll go from there. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.